Hey everyone, my name is Bryon Howard. I'm a Calgary realtor who has sold an average of a house a week since moving to this great city in 2003. And this is Calgary Living. I'm interviewing Calgary's top performers as it relates to living and lifestyle in our great city. Some of the podcasts will be real estate decisions specific, but most will be about life in Calgary and why we choose to live here, or at least why you should visit. Thanks for tuning in. Well, folks, welcome to another edition of Living in Calgary. I'm your host, Bryon Howard, and today I have an old friend on the Zoom call, Ricky Richard. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, Bryon. Thanks for having me.
When I was realizing, like, your whole name, we don't really call each other by first and last names these days. You have the coolest name, one of the coolest names ever. I'm so lucky to have such a great name.
Well, it's interesting you bring it up. The first name, Rick, is actually short for Richard. But of course, my last name is Richard, pronounced Richard. It's the French version, coming from the Maritimes, like yourself. So I don't know. I think the parents had a little bit too much vino in celebration, and they couldn't think of something more original. But Richard, Rick is kind of stuck, and for sure I've had a few nicknames growing up. So,
did you always like your name? My name's Bryon, and it's spelled awful, terribly, Bryon. So people often think I'm Byron. I always hated my name, and as a kid, I'm getting used to it at this point. But do you like your name? I assume you did.
Yeah, I did. I mean, I think the biggest nickname was Richie Rich, and growing up watching that animated cartoon was pretty neat. That was a cool nickname, but I've never had a problem with it. I think the Ricky has dropped as I've aged. I'd like to think that I've matured and sort of dropped the Y at the end and I'm no longer an adolescent, but I've never had a problem with my name.
I don't blame you. And you were born in Prince Edward Island. And how did you come to live in Calgary?
Born in Prince Edward Island, left Prince Edward Island at the age of 3. At that point, not a whole lot of job opportunity and career growth paths in Prince Edward Island. And so my parents moved to Toronto, Ontario. At that point in the late 70s, early 80s, Toronto was booming. And so no problem getting work there. And so I grew up in Toronto, right in the heart of the city. And so that was fun. Great time growing up, playing lots of sports. In 1997, I went across Canada and on a bicycle and stopped in Calgary, and the mountains just kind of, had this appeal to them. And lo and behold, went back to Toronto after that bike trip and started the plan to move out to Calgary. So in June 18th, 1999, landed in Calgary. And so that's coming up to 22 years. So it's been a lot of fun out in Calgary, but it's definitely the draw of the mountains and the draw of everyone being working hard, but playing harder. And that 45-minute drive out into the mountains just was really appealing to me.
That's cool. So playing hard, that's something that you've done a lot of. You bike cross Canada in 97. You're a multi-time Ironman guy, an ultra runner. Currently, well, actually, your A race, as we were just discussing before I hit record, is the Sinister 7, which is a epic in itself. But probably most epic is your current endeavor, is running every single street in Calgary.
Yeah, that kind of came I'd say probably 14, 15 months ago when COVID kind of hit and lockdown, and I think people were in that mind space of thinking, what's important? What do I want to accomplish during this lockdown? And probably about a couple months prior to that, I'd watched a documentary with Ricky Gates. And Ricky Gates is a pretty accomplished ultra runner. And at that point, he had ran every single street in San Francisco. And so the idea of running every street in Calgary just appealed to me. And I couldn't shake it. Fast forward a couple of months later, we're in lockdown. And it was just one of those things that the idea of it, I couldn't shake. And when March hit of last year, it was just, why don't I give it a go? And so it started out not realizing the magnitude of how big Calgary is. Somebody, I think, once said it's the most spread out 1 million+ people in North America, which wouldn't surprise me, as in the real estate world, it's not very dense. There's a lot of green space, a lot of rivers, and there's not a whole lot of high rises, relatively speaking, for a North American city. So lots of cities to conquer. Just under 10,000 streets, need to be ran. And a lot of those are cul-de-sacs. So one way in, one way out. So you've got to kind of run it twice, which it is what it is. But so it's fun. There's an app that kind of follows your progress. And so it makes it interesting. And just to get out and see different communities that I would never venture out to, and just to kind of meet some people along the way and run with some people just like yourself and explore their neighborhood, and they can kind of educate me a little bit about their neighborhood. So it's been, so far 15 months in, it's been a lot of fun.
That is great. 15 months. And so what's your average kilometers per week at this point? And how many days a week are you running?
Yeah, I'm probably running, I would say 4 to 5 days a week. And I would say average, I'm probably in that 60 to 90 kilometers a week, somewhere in there. And mostly we're using that as an opportunity to run the streets and pick a neighborhood and run that. But like yourself, I'm doing other races in the Sinister Seven. So I'm trying to train for that at the same time. And it's not quite the same training for that as it is running some streets. So the Sinister Seven is a very mountainous race. And so I'm trying to get out to the mountains a little bit. But during the week when I don't have as much time, at night I can, sneak a run in at some neighborhood and bang off a couple of streets here and there. So
wild. What is the Sinister Seven?
Sinister Seven, I first heard about it probably 5-6 years ago. It's a race put on by Sinister Sports, Brian Gallant, the race director. And it is mostly known as a relay race. And there are 7 legs to it. And it's 160 kilometers in the mountains in the Crow's Nest Pass, right on the Alberta-BC border. So about 3 hours south of Calgary. And I would say that probably of the people that participate, there's probably 10 to 20% that are solo racers. And those people wish to take on that 160 kilometers solo as opposed to the relay. And so that's what I'm aiming to do in about 5 weeks' time, is to take it on solo. So 160 kilometers in the mountains, you've got 30 hours to complete it. And I believe the last year it was held in 2019, I believe it was a 72% DNF. So most people don't finish that started solo, either, DNF because of medical or for whatever reason, or run out of time. But most people don't finish, unfortunately. So there is a time limit for a reason, for people's safety. And it's a tough one with the elevation that's involved in the mountainous terrain. It's a tough one to finish in that time frame.
Do you know what the elevation is?
I should know. I look at the website every now and then, but I also like to be a little bit ignorant in terms of what I'm up against. And I know there's a lot of uphill. So I know I'm going to be pushing and going uphill, but I don't know the exact elevation, but it's significant.
Have you ever done a race that long?
Not that long. I've done a few 100Ks in a race and in training and stuff. So I've done 21 hours sort of running, hiking last summer in the Canmore Quad, which is 4 summits.
Canmore Quad?
Canmore. Yeah, we did that. And it was a really long day on a really hot day in Canmore in August. So that was a lot of fun. And that was 21 hours, not anywhere near 160 kilometers, but it was a tough day, given the terrain. And then a few other, runs that were in and around 100-ish kilometers. So I know what that feels like in terms of being at that point and being fatigued, mentally a little drained, your stomach kind of being off. So there's a few variables that come into play sort of after that 4, 5, 6 hour mark. As you know from doing Ironmans yourself, it's a little bit of a trial and error to try and figure that stuff out once things start to kind of go south and you're challenged a little bit.
Exactly. Canmore Quad, what are the 4 mountains and what order did you do them in? And do you know the kilometer distance and the elevation on that one?
I know a little bit. So the Canmore Quad involves leaving the Georgetown in downtown Canmore. And historically, it's been done by going to the highest summit first, which is Grotto Mountain. And then the next highest summit is Lady McDonald. And then the next highest summit after that is the east end of Rundle. And then finally, the shortest of them all is High Ling. And then you run back down to the Georgetown Inn. And if you can do that within 24 hours, it's considered a victory of the Canmore Quad. About 55-ish kilometers in total. You're probably running maybe 10 kilometers of that. There's just so much power hiking that is involved with the elevation. I don't know the elevation. I'm embarrassed. I should know, but it's tough. It's really, really tough.
You're a bit like me in that way. I would if elevation, it's like, I'm just doing it. I'm going to try it. Let's see how it goes. Whereas other people will know exactly, okay, we have this much elevation. It's interesting. Good for you. Well, you've been in Calgary for 21 years. seems obvious to me what you like about Calgary. It's the outdoor opportunities. What else is it that you love about Calgary?
Yeah, I think there's this, when I first moved here, 850,000 people, it felt like a small town coming from Toronto. And so you'd go to the grocery store or you'd go to a restaurant or a bar at night and you would bump into people that you knew. And so that really appealed to me, that small town kind of feel of 850,000 people. Over the course of 21, 22 years, that's changed. We're up to 1.4 million. Doesn't quite have that small town feel. Some of those big city problems have kind of creeped in, but I still love Calgary. I still love Alberta. The people I find super friendly. And I think a lot of people aren't from Calgary originally. So I think we have that common thread that we're sort of all from, somewhere else. And we all kind of try to help each other out in a way. So I find it pretty friendly. Again, it's all relative coming from Toronto. Coming from PEI, it might be a little different. It might not be as friendly. It might seem a little cold. But I just find that people are very much into the outdoors themselves. So they can relate when you're doing different things. Very friendly, very down to earth, and just good natured people that, that want to do well. So, yeah.
Can you tell me a little bit about your interest in real estate and how you did in real estate since coming to the city, and as it relates to like the boom and bust cycle that we all know and maybe sometimes love or don't love, depending on what end we're facing on the boom bust cycle? Tell us a bit about your real estate journey.
If I could have a mulligan in this world, I think it would be around my real estate journey. So I came to Calgary with a little bit of money, in the bank, not a ton, but enough that I could have done something in the real estate world with. And I didn't. I think at 22 years old, I was kind of a deer in headlights coming to Calgary without a job, without a place to live. And so there was a tremendous amount of fear being that young, coming to a new city. So I didn't do anything in the real estate world. We just kind of froze. But looking back, hindsight's always 2020. And since then, I would say I became a homeowner kind of late, in life. And we lived in a place in the suburbs down in Auburn Bay, and we lived there for 4+ years, and it was a great home, and we thought we were going to be there forever. Work circumstances changed within our household where my wife needed to be closer to downtown, and the commute was just pretty daunting every day in the middle of winter. Some days were 2 hours to get home from the Beltline. And so we made the tough decision to move and to get a place in Killarney that was walking distance to work. And so we did that, which was great. Fast forward, 3 years later, and circumstances changed again. And we've historically kind of bought at a high time. And so it seems like we keep buying at high times, but now we're in a different situation. We moved 7 months ago. We moved just around the corner. So we're still in Killarney. We love the community. Just everything kind of central and close by. Great neighborhood, very, very active, community, young family. So it's great. So we're lucky that we stayed in Killarney, but we had to get a different place because our family situation changed, and we had to bring some in-laws and bring some people, bring some family into the household with us, in which case we needed a bigger place than what we were in. So that's what we did back in December of 2020, and we're still here. So life is good. Yeah. If I could turn back the clock, we'd do things a little differently, but that's life, right? So
exactly. Yeah. It sounds great. It sounds like you brought Twyla's parents in, and they're her aging parents, right? So you're helping with that. So you got the multifamily in the same home. That's great. Yep. Congratulations for being able to make that happen, and sounding like it's making it, work, and it's working out for everyone. That's terrific.
Yeah, it was a great transition. It was a move that had to be made for the best interest of everybody, and no regrets, on that move for sure.
Tell me a little bit about your work with EMCO. You're in the helping water move in Calgary. Is that how we'd say it?
So we like to say it. We like to keep the water flowing in Calgary. I joined EMCO in 2013, so I've been there for 8.5 years now, and it's been great. It's been a real challenge, a real learning curve, a real growth opportunity, both personally and professionally. And so we're set up as a plumbing wholesaler. So we supply plumbing product. Traditionally, we supply plumbing product to plumbing and heating companies throughout Calgary. We do sell to the public, so our doors are open to the public, so anybody can walk in and buy something, whether it's a kitchen sink or bathroom faucet. But most of our sales are generated from a wholesale level, where businesses are coming in to buy product from us. So, in a little building by Chinook Mall, EMCO's been in that building for 71 years. So there's some deep, deep roots where we're seeing third generation plumbers that are coming to us. So their dad who used to buy product from us, and their dad's dad, so their grandfather, used to buy product from us. So when you've been in a building for 71 years, I think that's rare in Calgary. I think it speaks volumes to the quality and sort of the stability of a company like EMCO. I really enjoy working there. Great culture, real healthy. That's been a lot of fun. So
Interesting. I wonder, are you able to maybe comment a little bit on the boom bust economy as relating from the sort of our real estate talk and your work in like the plumbing industry, or I guess maybe the trades or building industry almost? How does the boom bust economy affect your mindset, and how do you cope with it?
Right. So it's been interesting. There's been a couple within the sort of the 8.5 years I've been there. It's been really difficult to forecast because you look at the data and you kind of go, historically, you've always gone by the price of oil. And that's all we've had to go by is, the price of oil is going to dictate what's happening in the building world. My business at EMCO, our business is a little unique in the sense that it's mostly service plumbers, small renovation plumbers, small service plumbers, and small builders. So not the typical big builders that you would see out there that most people would recognize their names. So my business has done pretty well, all things considered, and avoided kind of a boom bust cycle. And I think in the last 15 months, it's been interesting because I think what happened first was a lot of layoffs and businesses being shut down. And so there was that concern that people were going to hold on to their money. And we haven't seen that. What we've seen is people that are using things in the home more because they're at home more. So those things are breaking down more. And we've also seen the fact that if people are going to be in their homes more, they want to enjoy it more. So maybe they want to develop that basement. Instead of moving, they're going to develop that basement. And so that basement is going to probably have a bathroom and a wet bar. And so that's where EMCO can come in and assist with that. So we've seen some pretty decent numbers across the board in Calgary with growth. And that's been really exciting for the business. Super interesting because a lot of the contractors that come in and buy product from us, they're telling us they've never been this busy. It's going to be interesting as Alberta looks like things are opening up. Today's June the 7th, and it looks as though things are going to start to go into a next phase later on in the week. And as Alberta opens up, it's going to be interesting to see if people historically that have held on to that money to travel are going to start to travel again. Because I think in the last 15 months, they've used some of that money to do some home renovations and different things around the house. So it should be interesting how we evolve in the next phases.
Yeah, exactly. And Rick, what's easy for you these days? What do you find them? Yeah, is there just a fun question? What are you finding easy in life these days, or in your work? Or is there anything easy?
There's nothing easy right now. No. I wish there was something that was easy, but there's nothing easy. I just feel I'm concerned with the state of people's mental well-being in society. I think everybody in the last 15 months has become really aware about their own mental health and about other people's mental health. And I think that is at the forefront of the next number of years in terms of a conversation. COVID has definitely changed the world in so many ways. And I think one of the ways from a positive perspective is it's allowed people to kind of peel back the layers of an onion to really understand what's important to them. And the distractions of going to malls and movie theaters and restaurants sort of took a back seat for 15 months. And people got really closer with their family, maybe some friends, their career. And so I think those things have really kind of come to the surface in the last 15 months. And mental health is a big component of that. So I think there's been a lot of challenges for people when I'm saying this I feel really privileged that I'm happy and content with a lot of areas in my life. It's not perfect by any means. But there's people that have been challenged with some serious challenges. And I don't know how it's going to, turn out as a society. But I would say that this is our defining moment for sure, where we can make a real lasting impact in the world. So that's kind of a real vague answer to your question.
But a nice answer. It's nice to take pause. I see that you're taking pause and thinking about that, and it's generous of you to express that. So thank you. So getting back to the every single street, it's awesome. How has that been in the past? Since COVID, like you're doing it. What's it like? I said, hey, when you do Altador, I want to run with you. And we did that together over a couple of outings. And I have actually been in my own community, a Facebook group in Altador. I've been kind of promoting the idea of like, let's run every single street in Altadore, which you told me you think it's about 30K, which is like kind of doable. And so I'm kind of getting after that. But, and actually thinking about it as I ran just before this, just moments before I hit record on this, I was out for a run and in Altadore and thinking a little bit about training to try to do 30K in a day here in Altadore and trying to get some of the community behind it. How do a fair amount of lonesomeness as you're running these streets, trying to okay, now I think you're well over a third of the way done, aren't you? Or are you? Like, I just forget.
Yeah, so just about to hit 36%. So we're just more than a third. And great question in terms of the loneliness. It's, for me, I know we've gone on a couple of runs, but given the choice, I prefer to run alone. I don't mind when a friend is joining me like yourself. That's fine every now and then, but the bulk of my running is done alone. I actually prefer it that way. There's a fair bit of logistics that I have to figure out. One, I've got a planned workout, a coached workout, where my coach wants me to do a certain type of workout that day, a certain type of run. So different pacing and different heart rate zones. So I've got to figure out and orchestrate all of that. And then to do it within side of the every single street project is a little challenging. So I've got to figure out, okay, well, what community, he wants me to do some hill repeats. What community is going to serve me well to do that workout? And what community is going to serve me well that I haven't run in before? Because I don't want to do any type of duplication. I don't want to run the same streets twice. And so it becomes a bit of a challenge to figure that piece out. I would say I really haven't been bored. What I've noticed from a developer, and you'll appreciate this, from a developer perspective, is you can tell which developers have developed certain communities, especially as you get, out into the suburbs. So yesterday, for example, I was up in Rocky Ridge and Royal Oak, and there's some neat things going on in there. Rocky Ridge it's no longer a new community. It's become an older community, but there's a couple of pockets there that are brand new. There's a few streets on there that are absolutely brand new. And they've done some unique things up there with preserving some of the wildlife corridor and wet areas there. So, but I would say the loneliness doesn't creep in. I would say there are times where I really have to look down at my map, which is on my phone, to say, have I ran this street before? I can't remember running this street, especially when you're doing a lot of, crescents and cul-de-sacs, and they kind of look the same. And when you're out in the suburbs, a lot of those homes look the same. A lot of the streets look the same. So it can become challenging when you're 3, 4, 5+ hours into that run and your hydration and nutrition is not sort of at premium. Things can get a little loosey-goosey, if you know what I mean. But it's a lot of fun. I like the challenge. I like the sort of the loneliness. I've gone on a few runs with a few friends, not much. And I've got a couple people lined up that follow me on social media that have said, hey, when you're doing my community, which is whatever it is, let me know because I'd like to run some streets with you. And those situations I'll always say yes to. It's a chance to kind of connect with somebody and get their perspective of what their community is about, learn a little bit about them. I love people, so I'll never turn down that. But I'm also really okay to kind of run alone as well. So
that's great. Yeah. And so how people follow you? What are some of the ways? What are some best ways?
I would say, I get a 1 out of 10 in terms of my social media presence. I'm not very good at it. I don't do a good job sort of promoting myself, and that wasn't the intent anyway. But my Instagram is, I guess, the only place that people follow me, which is Every Single Street YYC is the handle, Every Single Street YYC. So that's how people follow me. I wish I could post more. I look at it and say, when I go for a run, I'm trying to get something exciting to post. And a lot of times there's not much exciting sort of that in terms of an opportunity to post something. So, and I think who's going to watch, who's going to look at that? It's not really exciting. So that's just my own kind of conversation that goes through my head. But yeah, I'm trying to make a better effort.
Yeah, good for you. I mean, I've gone to your Instagram account a few times and I was like, he's like running all this thing. I would expect more.
Yeah.
This is a guy who social media kind of added a lot, but then in any case, you see a lot of things. I just got to whip that camera out a little quicker.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I mean,
this is coming from the guy who's been taking selfies since my kids were 8 years old, and I learned what a selfie was. So
right. No, I think you're a great role model of how you do a pretty good job of promoting yourself. So perhaps you could put on a course of how to promote yourself on social media or something. So
What about Strava for the Strava folks?
I'm on Strava. I'm one of those sort of runners that I just hit start and stop on the watch, and it takes all of that data and does it all for me. So Strava is just my name, Rick Richard, and it takes that data, and then it's from the Garmin, it pulls that data, and then from Strava, it pulls it onto the app that tracks all the streets and puts them all together in this beautiful, kind of map, which is City Strides is the name of that app website. In City Strides, you get an overview of all, the entire city, which is kind of nice to see it from sort of the aerial view of what you've done and what you haven't done. So I'm on there, probably 2-3 times a day, just checking out where I'm going to, do the next sort of planned workout where it makes sense to run in what communities. So
that's great. Wrapping up here, do you have any ask for the audience?
I'd say going back to the Every Single Street project, Ricky Gates was pretty inspirational in getting my butt off the couch to run every street in Calgary. And I would say his definition and his why was that he wanted to feel more connected to his city, and he wanted to feel more connected to the different neighborhoods and communities. And that certainly was my intent. And I would say that certain communities in Calgary there's different stigmas and different reputations that exist. And I would say I've seen none of that. I felt absolutely safe on every street. And I know I'm privileged to, I don't share some of the same challenges as other runners do. But I would say in terms of people being friendly, I haven't been to a community where people aren't friendly. When you say hi, they say hi back, or they'll say hi first. And it's just been great to be out in different parts of the city in different pockets where I had this vision and this stigma maybe going into that community. And then it was totally changed, totally transformed after running in that neighborhood. So it's been a good lesson to just not judge and have an open mind, because it's not always what it appears to be until you're actually in there. And driving in a car is just not the same when you're going 40, 60 kilometers an hour. But when you're running at a much slower pace, the lens in which you're looking at that community is different. And so that's one thing that I've been grateful for, that I can slow down a little bit and experience it from a different perspective than I would if I was driving through that community.
Nice. Well, that's awesome. I look forward to continue to watch as you conquer every single street in Calgary. I guess maybe 2-3 years. Do you have a sort of a goal in mind?
I kind of do. I feel like it's probably another year and a half. I'm optimistic that probably the end of 2022 that we could be close. And I think as the number goes higher, it gets a little bit easier. If you think about McLeod Trail, the more you run along McLeod Trail, the easier it is to finish. So I think as you start to sort of populate the different streets, it becomes a little bit easier because you're slowly progressing on some of those bigger streets. You're slowly progressing, and then you're just sort of shading in kind of some smaller areas. So I think it does get a little easier. We'll have to wait and see. But hopefully by the end of 2022, we can be pretty close. So that's the goal. Great. Yeah.
Well, we wish you all the best in Sinister Stabbing coming up in about 5 weeks. We'll watch there. And as you finish this project.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on. It's been great. It's been fun. It's my first ever podcast. So I don't know if there's any more in my future, but this was the first one, and appreciate you reaching out. Appreciate the friendship and the runs that we've been on, and we'll have to get out for another run soon.
Love it. And yes, we'll have another podcast when you conquer every single street. For sure.
Great.
And maybe more in the meantime. Thanks so much for being on the show, man.
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Bryon.
BH out.
And I will